everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Rouge Rugby podcast. My name is Dan Murphy, and with me always is Derek Brissett. Derek, I feel like I'm just like living in Groundhog Day. Another game on the weekend, another tough Arrows loss. They just can't seem to close out those games. It was I didn't obviously, you guys made fun of me last weekend for not being able to watch the game live, but so I watched it while making supper last night, and it was ouch.
Yeah, it's another tough one. I mean, I don't know kind of voodoo the gold jersey has there, but there's something that's just I guess being a struggle to kind of get over the hump. But I mean, was the trip worth missing an Arrows game?
Oh yeah, for sure. It was.
Oh man,
definitely
that
worth
is
it.
not the answer that you're supposed to say here. You're supposed to be like,
Listen, if anybody's ever look up Cabinscape, I'm sure they're all booked up for this summer just because people are looking for any way to get away during COVID. Cabinscape, it was such a cool experience. And they've got ones like I went to their Halliburton, like they've got some in the Halliburton area, but they've got some I think in Muskoka, like they're kind of all over Ontario. So it's a free ad for Cabinscape. There you go, guys.
yeah, I was gonna say, did you pick up a new sponsor for the podcast?
No, I did not. One of these days.
Like if Cabinscape wants to sponsor us, I guess I'm all for it. But until then, Dan, would you just giving away free stuff right now?
I am. That's fine. They did me good this weekend. Yeah, no, it was lots of good matchups this weekend. I mean, the only really not close game was the Houston Atlanta game.
Yeah.
But let's get into this Arrows match, and to preface it, right after we recorded last week, the Arrows announced a trio of signings, which kind of changed
the signings into the last episode.
Yeah, we got half of them in.
We got the biggest one in.
Biggest one in, yeah. So, and some of these have interesting. I was trying to explain to my wife Ronan Foley's deal with his passport, but let's get into him first. Ronan Foley, 8-man flanker, from Dublin, Ireland, 22 years old, so a young guy. Played with Ireland and the under-20s Six Nations Championship. Featured for Leinster A, and he actually earned a cap with Leinster on the senior side in 2019. Since then, he was playing with his hometown club, and obviously the Arrows reached out to him. And the reason why I think it's interesting, why he's an interesting player, and another player that's part of this batch had a similar situation, is that he's a Canadian passport holder. So according to MLR, he's designated as a domestic player, but he's not eligible for the national team.
Yeah. I guess, but it's is that because he played U20 for Ireland, or is there something else there?
That I'm not sure. It was only Brian Ray made a few tweets about it. So
yeah,
I think that
trying to understand the eligibility laws for World Rugby is something that my brain just cannot comprehend, and I feel like you need a legal degree for. So I just kind of go off as if I'm just are they eligible for Canada? Sweet, awesome. It's nice that he's considered a domestic player for the purposes of Major League Rugby, though. Still, so there's kind of some benefits there. It's always kind of fun finding as the league has kind of developed, right? Those guys that are overseas that are maybe looking for those extra professional opportunities can kind of be like, oh hey, by the way, I have a Canadian passport, or I have an American passport. So, it's definitely helpful. Obviously, that's partly how Higgins ended up as an Arrow, right? Is because he has, the Canadian passport and stuff. Obviously, he's actually Canadian eligible, but it's I think those are kind of the guys that you should be everyone
focusing on. Yeah,
exactly. Every club in Major League Rugby should be kind of seeking out those guys that are maybe
there's kind of so many
hiding
guys from Ontario that are high level, that are willing to take the time out of their careers, because at the end of the day, these guys are going to be the fringe players. These guys are going to be the bench players, and then when injuries pop up, they're going to be the ones that step in the starting lineup,
or they'll end up being really good,
unless they're amazing and they change my mind. But yeah, it's ingenuity that the Arrows are finding in these tough times. Another player.
I mean, again though, just part of this is seeing like the amount of guys that are leaving either to represent Canada or Uruguay. The fact that like Mark Winokur is finding a way to field a team like in these circumstances is like, there isn't a GM of the Year award, I guess, in Major League Rugby, or that they didn't do one before. The NHL has a GM of the Year award.
Yeah, it's
They
won by
vote.
the same guy 2 years in a row, which he
Well,
shouldn't have.
no, the GM,
We're not going to get into that because
yeah,
I'm mad about
yeah,
that.
exactly. The GM of the Year award weirdly voted on after the second round of the playoffs, and happens to have three guys that are in the conference finals. Ooh, that's what a shock that is.
Yeah,
The GM of the Year award is the Stanley Cup in hockey. It's probably
yeah, you
realistically,
should. There should be a
yeah,
GM award. There
yeah.
should.
It's and conversely, I would think the GM of the Year award is the Shield in Major League Rugby too.
Yeah,
That's your ultimate goal. But I'll make an exception this year for Mark. The GM of the Year award should be named after him, just based on what he did for this year. If they do that,
yeah.
going further.
So we'll talk about what we thought about Foley and his kind of debut with the Arrows coming off of the bench. Another player that was immediately slotted into the lineup, Alexandre Jalen,
Gentlemen.
Jalen, a French man. He is a French, not Quebec French. A little bit older than Foley, 26. Was actually with a at the lowest tier in professional rugby in France. He's a graduate of Toulousain's Stade Toulousain's senior grade program, which is anytime that you can have a guy that's been a part of that type of program, you're gonna want to soak that up. Another passport holder, but not eligible for Canada. I mean, for a good little period of time, we've been worried about the Arrows prop depth. So I'm always going to say yes. Give me a guy who's been in a professional environment, and let's put him into what the Arrows have. So that's great. Great to see that.
Well, I mean, that's part of what I'm saying. It's like I'm just super impressed by like, with the way the season's gone. There's been some injuries in the front row. A lot of the front row guys are going to Canada, and to be able to find guys like Jalen and Tomlinson at the end of the year, that's huge for just the team in general, right? To be able to find those guys to make those big depth signings to close out the season here.
And then our last guy is Hank Stevenson, who was actually originally signed by the Jackals, and then was picked up by Utah after the Jackals decided to wait another year. And he's actually on loan from Utah.
Yeah. So what a weird season for Hank Stevenson, I guess. Like he's been the Laurier Golden Hawk. So I guess he signs with Dallas. Dallas obviously isn't competing, goes to Utah, still hasn't played a game, and now is on loan to the Arrows. So he's on his third MLR team before playing an MLR game.
Yeah.
Which I haven't checked, and maybe I should have before doing this podcast, as you can see how much prep I have done for this episode. I probably should have checked, but it's like that has to be like a record of like has anybody else even come close to being on the roster for 3 different teams before playing their first game? Has this happened in any sport?
I'm sure it's probably happened.
Maybe happened in some sport. I mean,
I'm sure this has probably happened in baseball. I feel like this is
baseball, hockey, where you can trade like where prospects get traded all the time.
Yeah,
maybe. But yeah, no. So it's like I feel like it's the first time in MLR. I could be wrong. Those send me a message on Twitter or something if I am wrong. I'd love to know who it is. But yeah, so but again, though, it's like hopefully sometimes you just got to give a guy an opportunity to play, right? And maybe obviously Dallas's situation's a little bit different, but like Utah's got some amazing locks in Utah. Like that they got like a great core, especially with like Fortain, Uhila and stuff, right? Like they got some amazing locks down there, and
they do,
and it's a tough lineup to crack. So it's like maybe he can come over to the Arrows, and maybe he's got an opportunity here. And the Arrows, we know the Arrows are mathematically eliminated, but like I think at this point for a lot of players and stuff, especially guys like Stevenson, like this could be an opportunity to show like this is your opportunity. You got 3 games or whatever it's gonna 3 games to maybe come out and prove to the Arrows and the Arrows and the rest of the MLR, it's like, you give me a contract for next year, right? Like that's
Yeah, give me
kind
a
of what you're playing
chance.
for.
I think that's again with the we'll get let's get into the game. So with the loss to NOLA Gold losing 18-12, the Arrows were officially eliminated from playoff contention.
Mhm.
It really was
It's
it was
shed a
almost
tear.
guaranteed, and this was the final nail in the coffin. Um, how do you think this game went, Derek? Because again, I'm kind of coming off this like I didn't feel the I already knew what was happening, so and I was also kind of cooking at the time, so admittedly didn't look at the absolute pinpoint details of this game, but to me it just felt like this kind of we've seen matches like this kind of this year happen. You know, the Arrows execution was off, lineouts were off, kicking was off, certain points of brilliance, like
Mhm.
Lesage's try, that was all him working his butt off, following the chase and making some magic happen. And then the same thing with the Mirez kick try. The kick from Will Kelly was great. Um,
Yeah, it was an unreal play from him.
but I wanted to hear from you. You know, did you feel like this was kind of the status quo of the Arrows lately? Mistakes are kind of piling up, and then minutes of brilliance keep the game closer than it should be, or did you think that there was a little bit more to see?
No, I thought I thought they actually like, especially the first half, I thought they played really well actually. Um, I think it was one of those games where it's just absolutely pouring in NOLA, right, or in Atlanta,
Mhm.
and you can kind of just tell just the handling errors just amounted on both sides, right? Just because like you can't necessarily execute the way that you would want to when the ball's soaking wet. So I think that was kind of, I don't necessarily want to say it was like a grand equalizer or anything, but it definitely had an impact on the game because both, I felt that both teams kind of, when they got some good like go forward going or whatever, it was inevitably just like, okay, you're just kind of waiting for that big hit because it's going to be a knock on that's going to end it.
Yeah,
So if you can get like your hand close to the ball or something like while you're throwing the hit, it looked like there was a lot of guys causing, there was a lot of knock-ons in the game. Part of that was just because of the weather. um and then, like Nola's scrum was really good. And when there's a lot of knock-ons, right, team with the better scrum maybe has a little bit of an edge in that in that game, right? And it kind of showed there was that, obviously, the one really big moment when Matt Harmon came on and just decided that he was gonna, you know, push the Arrows pack back a couple meters and get a penalty. So, that was obviously, that was a big moment from him in the game. Um I think there was a lot of really good things. It's one of those games I'm just like, oh man, like I kind of, you look at a couple of the tries that they gave up, and it was like the Dominguez try is like, watching, it's a great play. It's a nice counter attack from Dominguez, and but it's also kind of like,
where was the
like
tackle? Where was
maybe you
everyone's
need someone,
positioning on that one?
as they say in hockey, like sometimes you just need somebody to make a save. Right. And sometimes, I don't know, sometimes you just, it's a nice try, but like, you know, it's tough to
There
watch a
were a
guy
few
like,
missed tackles
yeah, there was some missed
hits that were
tackles.
already turned. Yeah, like the
Yeah, it's
positioning
like,
in that play
yeah,
wasn't
like
up
I
to
don't think
snuff.
it's not a bad try by any stretch, because it's like Dominguez did the work to earn that try.
Mhm.
But yeah, like, it's a solo effort counterattack try, right? And I think that's part of the thing. It's like in this game, you kind of look at the way the tries were scored, from both teams, right? Like you had like Dominguez runs a solo attack counter try, right? Lesage's try was like a solo effort play, right? Just, charging down the kick, pouncing on it. That was kind of like Cam Dolan's try was that, like, I was just kind of like, okay, like those the maul, the ball goes to deck, and then Dolan, even like everyone kind of like ripping on, like, I guess like it kind of looks like the arrows kind of stopped. Nola stopped too. Cam Dolan, I think, was the only guy that kept
Only guy
actually
that
playing.
did, that kept going.
Right. And it's like, that's, you kind of look at that as a mistake, or like, maybe you can argue maybe there should have been a knock on, but it's like at the end of the day, you still got to play to that whistle, right? And
For sure.
And so Dolan kind of sneaks through there. So it was like the two NOLA tries. It was kind of like, I mean, I thought the defense overall I thought was pretty good. They had like 88% of their tackles were made, which is solid. Unfortunately, some of those tackles that are missed, you can kind of pinpoint the two exact plays where most of them occurred. In the fact that Dominguez shedded a couple guys, and then there was I think it was Cortez who's the closest guy to Dolan when he snuck through the side of that mall. Um, I think though, like there's a lot of positives in this game too. Like Lucas Rumball is a god. Like it was brilliant. He had two official breakdown steals. I thought he had three. Maybe just didn't get credit for one of them, but when I was watching the game, my notes that I was kind of taking, I had Rumball at three breakdown steals, but that didn't end up being the official number. But either way, man, he's just like one of those guys. He just makes all his tackles, gets to every single ruck. There's no one in the league that is even remotely close to how well
Yeah.
he's playing at the
Yeah,
breakdown
I
right
think
now.
that he's and it's funny, a few weeks ago, Dan Power did like a poll of who he thought was the starting 15 of MLR. And like he didn't include Lucas Rumball. And I you know, replied on the story. I said, like, where's Lucas Rumball? And he said he started off great, but he Dan felt that he had slowed up a bit. And I don't think that Lucas Rumball has slowed down a bit. I think he's just had to change his game. I think that he's had been relied upon on so much of the defensive side that by the time that at the start of the year he was having these monster carries too. Like,
Still having monster carries. He's got some.
but
He's
I
like
think
in the top 10 in carries in the league. He's getting a lot of carries
a
still.
lot of carries, but like how what I think that I was looking at it, his meters per or his yards per carry or his meters per carry has been down progressively as the season goes on. I think that his season has had some wear and tear on him,
Mm.
and also if he's having to do more on the defensive side of the ball, he's probably going to just not have as much in the tank left to do it offensively. So I agree with you. I think that he's been playing so well, and I think he's just not as noticeable because one, everyone's still looking for the long hair. Two, I think part of it is just that he's had to switch up his game a little bit because the Arrows haven't been playing the same as they did. You look at all their wins where he was brilliant in, and even in the beginning of the year when they lost their first two games, the Arrows were playing a much more aggressive style. I feel like lately they've kind of been taking less of an aggressive approach, especially with their offense. And maybe that's with the fly half change. Adams hasn't been playing as much.
Yeah. Um,
Anyways,
I would
it
say
is what it is.
I would say that Rumball's incredibly noticeable every time he's on the pit. Like, I mean, even in this game, he had the most carries for the Arrows. He had 47 meters, which is looks about fourth on the team. Um, and he hits like almost every ruck still. Like you said, he had all the breakdown steals. He got a couple takes in the line out. So I don't know how you wouldn't have possibly, like, even like I get that the Arrows are kind of losing and maybe that factors in, but like
Maybe.
yeah, but I don't get how you don't, like I said, like if you look across the league in like categories, like the major statistical stat categories, he's at the top. He's got the most like carries, ruck arrivals, breakdown steals. He's like more than lapped everybody. My like everyone like I keep seeing being like, oh, like yeah, because the next closest guy is Dom on Atlanta and he's got 9, right? So if you take the guy in second and third and combine them, they still don't catch run ball. And the Utah Warriors, if you combine all the players on their roster, they still don't catch run ball.
Yeah.
It's nuts. It's like, what he's actually been doing it's crazy. And yeah, so I mean, and he did it again in this game. I did think though that this game was a lot of fun, partly because of Lucas Rumble, but partly because Cam Dolan was also on the other side of it. And Cam Dolan had a brilliant game in his own right. He had a lot of
He always steps up, I feel, when he plays the Arrows.
oh man, yeah. Well, I mean,
He's an amazing player. He's an Eagle legend, like
I love my favorite part of this game, in all honesty, was just there was a moment where the Arrows have a line out and it gets stolen by Dolan. And so Dolan steals the line out. They pull it out to I can't remember who actually had the next carry. But so Nola steals the line out. There's the next carry. Tackle's made. Rumball comes over the ruck and steals the ball back. And I was just like, this is what this game is. It's Cam
Yeah.
Dolan. I was like, Cam Dolan's doing the thing that makes in the line out. Obviously, he had the try too. His work rate's immense. He's great at the breakdown too. So it was like it's Cam Dolan. He's got and like Rumball too. He gets a lot of carries. And it was one of those things that was kind of fun because it was like Cam Dolan doing the things that make Cam Dolan one of the best players in the league, going head to head with Rumball, doing the exact things that make Rumball the best player in the league. And they're all kind of good at what each other's good at, but they all kind of also specialize in something that they're a lot better at the other guy then. And it was a fun matchup to kind of see them going head to head at for the majority of the game. Similarly too, like in the centers, JP Duplessis versus Ben Lesage was
Yeah.
awesome to watch.
And that was talked about on the broadcast and also just kind of,
Well, the MLR team of the week, the two centers are
yeah.
Duplessis and Lesage, the way it should have been after this game. There was just like if Lesage had a carry, Duplessis hit him. If Duplessis had a carry, Lesage hit him. They were both making their tackles. They were both battling each other at the breakdown. It was they were doing what they could to try to create some offense too. And like I think that's part of why maybe there was a little less scoring. Obviously the weather kind of contributes to the scoring factors in the game, but like like both teams showed up to play this one, man, and there was a lot of like good defense and stuff. Like I said, like the tries were all kind of came with like quickly, like they weren't like there was
Yeah, they weren't coming off of a long set plays
yeah, like it was
or like,
Dominguez had his like I'm turning into Nightcrawler and just gonna bamf my way into the try zone here, in order just not be hit and just pop 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 pop, and then yeah, I'm in the try zone, and then he hurt his shoulder on that play and battled through that the rest of the game, and he did a really good job like containing guys on the edge and stuff too, with what clearly looked like a very uncomfortable shoulder.
well,
Um,
if we're going to talk about injuries, I feel like we would be remiss if we did not mention
oh
Spencer Jones. So we want to take the time to
yeah,
say, Spencer, hopefully the injury isn't too serious. It's an
yeah.
absolute heartbreaker, folks. Spencer was on pace to um, take part in Canada's traveling squad to the UK. There's even talks about him starting for Canada. Um, so to see this happen is an absolute heartbreaker. Since Spencer Jones has joined the Toronto Arrows, he's been nothing but an absolute warrior. He helped keep the fort down in 2019 when everyone else was on international duty, and so just want to say, Spencer, get better, buddy. We hope that you heal up quickly, and hopefully it's not as serious as everyone thought.
Yeah,
Not
it's
just rest up.
I yeah, I think that's all you can really kind of hope for, man. Is it like because it like on screen and stuff, like it looked bad, like he looked like he was in quite a bit of pain. So, um, yeah, it's a gutting one, man. It's yes, yeah, like he was definitely like obviously on the Canadian squad, and yeah, like I agree. Like I think Lesage is obviously one of the starters, but then like you're probably looking at Jones versus Nawadi for the other starting jersey and stuff, and it could have been it. Hopefully, could have been. Hopefully, it could still be his first cap. Like I said, don't necessarily. Do we know the extent of the injury as of yet?
I don't think anything's been said yet.
Nothing's been necessarily said officially. It didn't look too great though. So, I guess stay optimistic maybe. And but yeah, like that's one of the that's just a terrible one to see, especially like it's at the end of the game too, and it's knowing that the tour to Europe is so close, and yeah, man, I mean that's tough. It's like you said, like, and even that, like Jones, he missed all of 2020. I mean, as abbreviated as 2020 was, he missed all of 2020 with an injury too, and then he's been a great player for the Arrows this year, and
Yeah.
like, I kind of like him in that 12 jersey with Lesage. Coming over from like where he was in 2019 and the 13 jersey more often. I think that 12 jersey really suits his game very well, and he played great in this game too. Like he had you know, he had a couple great carries and stuff. Obviously, kind of taking on the kicking duties a little bit, so he's
Hmm.
getting that added responsibility too. And so yeah, yeah, man, it was just awful to kind of see him go down like that. And
Yeah.
as you said, man, just wish him a speedy recovery.
Yeah, and it's interesting you bring up the kicking because I want to talk to you about this later because we need to talk about Canada's fly half situation. So I want to talk about that later. So put a pin on that. Who was your player of the match for this game? Who do you think stood out
Um, well, like for player of the match for the arrows, is
for the
that's
arrows?
yeah, I was gonna say that's usually what we do. Yeah, Rumball. It's Rumball and Lesage, I think.
Yeah, the co-captains played
Yeah,
really well.
I mean,
I'm gonna
realistically, that's pretty much been the way it's been all year. Pretty much is, you
yeah.
know, I think yeah, you need your best players to
You
be the best players.
sprinkle in Tukala and you sprinkle in
Yeah, I think like Rumble and
Montero.
Lesage, I think have been like there's been guys that have had those like brilliant games. I think Lesage and Rumble have been the two most consistently good players across the board,
For
for
sure.
every game that they've played so far. And yeah, like I think it kind of showed. Obviously, Lesage got the team of the week nod. Rumble probably should have had it, but when a back decides he's going to play open side flanker and get 3 breakdown steals, like
Yeah, well, we're also going to
he's
talk about
he's
that as
gonna
well.
he's gonna get the nod. I
Yeah,
think at
for
the
sure.
he got the player of the week too. I think because
Yeah,
oh
he
man.
did.
So I mean, I think yeah. So it's like I think Rumble should have he was robbed. I think should have been the player of the 7 this week, but
I disagree with you.
apparently
We're going to talk about that later.
MLR is just too easy for Billy Meeks. I guess I don't know.
What a guy who was playing Super Rugby in the Premiership
Happens to be good in this. Yeah.
happens to be pretty damn good. Yeah, I think that Rumble had a really good game as well. I'm going to go with one of the new guys, but he's probably the oldest guy is Rob
Oh,
Rower.
true. We haven't even talked about him yet. Yes.
Yeah,
Oh, go on.
he had a really strong game. It's like he missed no time at all. Right back into the thick of
Man, he looked
things.
great.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he was grizzled and pissy, and it was just great. I loved it, and I was happy to see Rob back. He was one of our favorite. You know, when we first started this podcast way back when, he was one of our favorites. You know, we had him go into the World Cup, and it was a heartbreaker that he didn't go.
He was the I guess the loose head for the 2019 like team of the year
Team of the year.
or whatever,
Yeah,
right? So like I mean, and he showed up. His work rate was insane in this game too. Like he got to 24 rucks total throughout the game. A lot of them on the like he was just his just absolute like monster, and did well in the scrum again too. Like that was great to see. Like you said, he looked like he didn't miss a beat, and
yeah.
always been
Offers a little bit of stability with these
yeah.
crazy times that the arrows are going to be going into.
Oh man, yeah. It's well, I mean, the whole year's been crazy times and
Yeah.
stuff. So it's
All right.
yeah,
Well, you
like
know what?
that was great to see him come in, and obviously we got a little bit of a look at Foley and Janlin too. So although Janlin only played I think like
5 minutes
5 minutes because Brower
because
was a
Broward put in
monster. Yeah.
75 bloody minutes. So
Yeah, exactly.
yeah,
Welcome back to the team, Rob. Thank you.
yeah,
We're super psyched that he's back on the team.
yeah.
Or
Fair
not
enough.
that he was never off the team, but great to
And I
see him
forgot
with
honestly, like I was really confused when I saw him in the lineup, and like I knew that he, you know,
yeah.
we had rumblings that maybe he was coming back, but I'm like, why aren't they announcing his signing? And then I realized,
Because yeah,
oh right, because he
he
was
signed way
technically
back then.
signed.
It's not a new signing, yeah.
Technically,
It's not a new signing. Yeah,
but like they could have done like a guess who's back.
but
That would have been cool.
yeah, the guess who's back stuff was all saved up for Sam Malcolm.
Sam Malcolm, yeah, just can't recycle the graphics. Come on.
Oh, I don't know. I don't know then.
Okay, so we're gonna do a little something here because after this weekend, the Arrows are losing their Uruguayan players. Gaston Mirez, Manuel Diana, and Leandro Livas are all leaving
They've already flown to Uruguay too, by the looks of it, from social media and stuff.
Yeah, like they're there already. They have said their goodbyes. And then after this weekend, again with the Arrows game against Rooney, um, we will not have any more of our now 8 Canadian players, depending on what's going on with Spencer Jones. Possibly sticking with 9 if Vicky Lonnie's going. That's still kind of a question mark. But anyways, we'll be losing our Canadian players that are going to be traveling to the UK. So what Derek and I have done is we have made our starting lineups post departures. So the guys that didn't get picked for Canada and the guys that are not Uruguayan. And we're going to kind of run through who we think should be starting
for after the Rooney game.
After the Rooney game.
After the
and the other thing that we're going to use, the other thing we're going to say is that this is 100% healthy. Everybody is healthy. You know, we didn't include guys like Wainwright and Jamie McKenzie because they've got long-term stuff and they're not even with the team right now. So this is only guys that we know are in Atlanta right now, are healthy.
We're assuming you wanted, well, when you described it to me, you were like assuming like the day-to-day guys can come back.
Exactly.
So
which hypothetically, they might.
Yeah.
Okay, so Derek, who is your pack? Who you just give me your 1 to 8 and you tell me.
Oh, okay. So I think the front row I would go with Brower, McRogers, Cortez. Locks, I want Wadden, Cellini. Back row I think is a little interesting. Like you said assuming healthy, so that means I'm getting Della Vega back.
Yep.
So I would go with. See, the interesting thing is I do want to know what's up with Vicky Lonnie. If he is healthy, does he go? Because there is kind of those spots that are up for grabs, and obviously he was one of the guys being talked about. If Vicky Lonnie doesn't go, then I would probably expect the Arrows to kind of be Della Vega, Flesh, Vicky Lonnie maybe as the back row.
Mm-hmm.
If he does go, I might go with maybe might go with Della Vega, Flesh, Francis as a back row.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Where do you have where are people?
I would
Vegas
6. See, that's the thing. It's like my question is, I would go with if Francis is in, I would probably go Della Vega 6, Flesh 7, just because Della Vega's played 6 the whole year, and then Francis 8. But I would have I'd have Vicky Lonnie 8 if Vicky Lonnie doesn't go, but if he does, and then maybe you got to mix Foley in there, maybe, or mix not in there.
So
I think that's those are kind of the other options. That's kind of back row's kind of an interesting one, but I think I don't know, maybe can Della Vega play 8? Is that an option? Then maybe you can kind of go Foley Flesh, or not Flesh.
So I have Della Vega at 6, Foley at 7, and then I've got Flesh at 8.
Flesh at 8, all right.
I just think that with his size, I think I would rather have him at the back of the scrum.
I was kind of thinking maybe the more experience.
And he's such I've loved what I've seen with ball in hand. I think Della Vega, which is funny because he's Cap 7's player.
Yeah.
I think I just like Flesh as an option at the back of the pack. And again, like you mentioned it, let's keep Della Vega where he's comfortable. He's been playing in the 6 jersey all year.
Yeah. I'm just thinking it's maybe you want the more experienced guy at the back of the pack, because that's a lot of responsibility.
Yeah, that's fair. But I think that if we're talking about future aspirations, not only for the club but for the country, I want to see where Flesh stands. So I want to give him another opportunity in a different position.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Okay. What does your back line look like?
All right. I'm going Ferguson.
Mm-hmm.
Malcolm at 10.
Okay.
Montero.
Yep.
At 11. Okay, so I guess Montero, Sheridan, Tukala, the outside backs. And then I'll be Detroit, Richardson at the centers.
Hey. No Malcolm.
I said Malcolm at 10.
Oh, sorry, no Taylor Adams.
Yeah, because Malcolm's at 10.
So I've got
I like Adams has. I don't know. Adams hasn't been playing. You're probably not bringing in Sam Malcolm to not play for the last part of the year.
yeah. Okay.
Not really
So
sure what's up with Taylor Adams. To be honest, he's not included on the injury reports and stuff.
yeah,
So
I don't know. I
it's
don't
a
know
bit of
what's
a
going on.
mystery there. But
Yeah, like he's in Atlanta. Like he's not gone. He's there. Yeah, it's interesting. I wonder if it's just a nagging. Yeah, he's not on an injury
but yeah,
report.
he's
Yeah,
the Arrows being one of the few teams in the league that do injury reports, and he's not on it, right? So
yeah, maybe just
bit of a mystery to me as to why he hasn't
yeah.
been playing. But I'm
I've got Adams at 10, Montero at 11, Detroit at 12, Tuchel at 13,
mhm,
Richardson at 14, Malcolm at 15. I liked what I
interesting.
saw. I liked what I saw with Adams and Malcolm last year. I think they had a good dynamic going.
Yeah,
You have Malcolm the kicking duties, and
I feel like
my reason,
are you just trying to shoehorn in having Adams and Malcolm both in the lineup?
yeah. I
Yeah,
mean, are you gonna look at
that's
me and
fair.
say in
That's
2020
fair.
Malcolm's and Malcolm's and Adams didn't work out?
Malcolm and Adams worked out
I
really
think
well.
that worked out pretty well. And you know what?
I
I
just think like
want someone.
Tukale is playing so well though. At
I know, but like
right,
we've seen what a strong defensive minded and also offensively gifted 13 does for your team. And
true.
I trust Tuchel to play in that 13 jersey, and he has played in it. Like
Yeah.
he's one of the most versatile players. That's one of the reasons why we were excited about him coming to the Arrow. So I want to see what he does, and I was kind of flip flopping between Richardson and Sheridan. Sheridan's gotten some of the starts lately, but I just like what Richardson's done this year, so I gave him a start on the wing.
Mm.
Okay, so who do you have on your bench?
I went with Tomlinson. You
Yep,
said everyone being healthy, so I went with Tomlinson, Lynott, Ouellette,
yep,
Shepherd. I guess I what did I say? I said Viculani was going to be my 8 because he's not on Canada, right?
yeah,
So I guess I'll go with I got Foley. I got Shepherd, Foley on the bench,
okay,
and then Higgins, Adams, and Kobe Fost for the
okay.
backs.
Yeah, I had I same front row. Shepard Francis as my 20. He covers both
Yeah.
lock and back row.
It's weird. It's weird because I wrote on my thing I would have him starting at 8 if Viculani's not here, but then I did not put him on my bench if he doesn't. If Viculani's here, I don't have him on the bench. So
Yeah, he's
he's either
gone.
he'd start. Yeah, I guess
He's
I don't.
either starting or
My
he's
line.
with
Yeah, there we
Canada.
go. Maybe some questionable lineup making on my part
Yeah.
here. It's like, yeah, he either
Um
starts or doesn't play. That doesn't really make much sense.
yeah.
But,
And then I've got Sheridan and then Fost. Because Fost can cover
oh yeah,
center
you're right.
and fullback, and then so Sheridan to come on the wing.
Well, there you go.
Looking at this, I look at my starting lineup, and it is an MLR team. Like, let's not
Yeah,
like not give this Arrows team credit. Like, this is a dangerous team. Like this is a team that can win against a lot of the teams in MLR. Now the question is, what happens when there is one key injury? What happens if Tucolette or you know
yeah.
Cellini get hurt or Brower get hurt?
I think that's kind
That's
of
going to be where these next 3 games kind of go.
I think that's kind of part of what we've always talked about on this podcast, or at least we
Yeah,
talked about it a lot last year and going into this season, how the Arrows are one of the deepest teams in the league. And maybe the wins and losses haven't really gone their way this year, but I still kind of believe that. Like I feel like I don't think there's like I feel like the Arrows are a lot better than what their record indicates, in my opinion.
yeah.
But it's it's just been one of those years, man. It's just not going their way, and it is what it
It's
is.
hard. See, it's hard for me because of the aspirations that everybody
Yeah,
has.
yeah, exactly. Like it's kind of
It's never great to be a contender to then be a pretender,
yeah,
like,
exactly. To kind of
to go, it's tough. And again, I don't think the only team that I can ever think of, um, that had to go through this was, the Crusaders when they had the earthquake in Christchurch. and they had to play all their games on the road. This has never happened before in professional sports.
Yeah.
And it's happening with like and like it's different from like what the Blue Jays or the Raptors are dealing with because they can afford to fly their families down to Florida and say, "Hey, go live in this condo I bought." Because
I
I'm
mean,
a
yeah,
multimillionaire. So, like, and we're not going to get into that because we've talked this discussion to death, but it is
yeah,
interesting to see what this team's going to look like, and there are going to be guys, and I've been messaging with Brock Smith, one of the staff with the Arrows, and he's talking about how there are guys fighting and playing for a contract in 2022.
yeah.
Who's going to put their hand up with this
That's
lineup? I
well,
see a
that
couple guys that are going
I
to be
think,
really interesting.
but even at that though, that's everybody on the team, but it's also like you have some of these guys. Like, I mean, Stevenson has kind of been like, maybe you kind of want to prove to Utah. It's like, hey man, guys should have played me more
Yeah, you should play me
or
some
something,
more,
right?
guys.
Like,
Come on.
there's stuff like that going on too, right? And yeah, like you're not these games aren't like meaningless by any stretch of the imagination, right?
Yeah,
Even though you're mathematically eliminated. And I mean, too, like you're looking at like the playoff race and stuff right now. And like I said, I think a couple episodes ago or whatever, go ruin someone's year. Like
yeah,
go hand New York a loss and be like, yeah,
yeah.
just
Because
wait
that's
now,
the
Nola's
their
ahead of
next
you
match.
guys. Enjoy the last 2 weeks of your
Yeah,
season or whatever. Like you said, it's like someone's gonna, those other teams that the Arrows have to play, like with how tight the playoff race is, they need wins. And you can, like, yeah, go in, ruin someone's year, man. Make some,
make a mess of it.
yeah, make some poor fan base in the Eastern Conference hate the Toronto Arrows forever because they knocked their team out of the playoffs or something. Like
Man,
it's
I remember. You know who I remember a few years ago. Like this is going back to like when the Leafs were they almost had made the playoffs and they were waiting on the like last game of the season, and it was the New York Islanders
yeah.
versus the New Jersey Devils,
Mm.
and I needed the Leafs, or I needed the Devils to win, and they
Yeah.
didn't. They couldn't do it, and
And they scratched Brodeur and like three other
yeah, they
best
played like
players.
Scott Clemenson, who ended up playing for the Leafs later on, and I'm like, I
Mm.
don't want you part of this team. I know what
That
you
was a
did.
shootout too. Like that went all
Yeah,
the way to the shootout. There was hope. There was hope there.
and
That was like that was so far back. That was like I think that was like what 2008, I think.
yeah, it
And
was
that
like the
was
Cliff Fletcher era.
yeah, so that was kind of like okay, they missed the playoffs for a couple of years, but it was like, man, we are not expecting this full like decade of just terrible
Absolute
hockey
misery.
to
And
follow.
now the team's good, and they're still causing misery.
I'm actually more upset at the team now that they're good and causing me
Yeah,
misery. And then if
exactly.
Montreal wins the Stanley Cup, I'm gonna lose my mind. Like it's this
Mm.
I hate
If
I
it was the Boston Bruins, I'd be more upset. I hate the
no, this
Boston Bruins.
not a single team would make me more upset than Montreal.
All right, let's move on because I want to talk about some of the other matches that happened. Um, Rooney gave it up in the end.
Yeah.
Old Utah, they just know how to
Yeah.
make these final matches happening. I will say I didn't get to watch a whole lot of this game, but I can't say it enough how happy I am that Quinn Nawadi is getting those center starts.
Yeah, I mean, he had a lot. He obviously had the start. I thought, it was relatively quiet-ish game from
Mhm.
him. I mean, apparently, like, I think he was doing rather well defensively, but as far as like ball in hand moments, I think there was just a couple there. I mean, I think he came out in like the 55th or so minute as well. Um, yeah, but it was, it is what it is. Not every game's you're not gonna light up the scoreboard every game. I do like though that it's like even though he didn't really get necessarily, the touches and stuff with the ball as you would maybe want to see, but like he, defensively though, he like, locked it down a lot. And he was making some tackles, making some good plays, and he's from the center position, man, he's making a lot of like really good reads on the defensive
Yeah,
side of the ball, which is definitely something that you do need. So I mean, even if it's
even if
not
he's not
necessarily there
making
for
big
you
line
offensively,
breaks. Yeah,
finding a way to contribute. Other side of the ball, I thought Fraser Hurst did really well to get Utah a lot of quick ball. And they Utah was able to use their scrum too as a pretty dominant platform for their attack throughout the game. and the territory and everything was all was controlled very well. And I think Hurst did well to kind of facilitate a game where Utah was playing in the right part of the park for most of it. And like obviously not on the pitch for the final comeback at the end, but really interesting to see how Pittman kind of chose to utilize his bench in this game.
Yeah.
Obviously, like Rooney ran into some issues where, like, Fawcett went down really early, Rochford went down really early, kind of forced all the reserve front row guys to go quite the distance on on their shifts, and Tawaki was, he probably might have played a full 80 if Scott Green didn't tell him that he needed to leave because he was bleeding too much, and but like I think the big thing though too is like you had those props that were probably tired because they came in a lot earlier, and then the second half comes in and you have like Vandenberg coming off the bench, right? And you had all their you had like the big guns for Utah came off the bench, right? Like Fortain was there, Cruze's there, Teo's there, and it's like they all came in and they made a huge impact off the bench. And Utah, like, I don't necessarily think Utah's like the best team in the league, but they are the most entertaining.
There's
And
very few
that's
teams.
probably equally, if not more important.
Yeah. There's very few teams I don't like as a fan. Don't like Rooney since like 2019. Just don't like him. Wasn't a fan of the Raptors just up until their RIP
Uh, So they don't
the
exist anymore.
Raptors. I did not like them. Um, Not a big fan of the Legion. Just don't like them. Maybe it's they remind me of Darth Vader.
What?
Utah
How do
is
they
somebody
hold on. How do they remind you of Darth
red and
Vader?
black, and then they know that their like helmet is a part of their like their jersey this year. Darth Vader, red and black.
Okay. All right. That's a
It's a
stretch.
very small
Oh,
comparison.
I
I
guess
know.
501st
We're
Legion.
spending way too much time on this.
501st Legion. I guess that's kind of a thing, right? He has
Yeah, there you
Darth
go.
Vader has a legion. You could have gone with that route, I guess.
I forgot who I was talking to. Sorry, everybody.
Yeah.
Um,
I was just
but I love Utah. Utah is such a fun team. You know what? I would rather not them have to like win like this, but hey, listen, you do you, boo. Good win, Utah.
Man, I have no problem with them winning like this. Winning like this is fun. Like that's I think
If you don't want to have like a heart attack,
the one thing though that I find interesting, and it's looking at the playoff race, right? And it's like I kind of wonder, because obviously, in every sport, right? Like there's multiple ways to go about building a team, right? Like you can go and you can build a team to be like really play really well defensively. You can build teams, for certain play styles and stuff. You can have
yeah,
teams that like to kick. You can have teams that like to grind it out in like the breakdown and whatnot. There's rugby's a beautiful game for that reason. There's multiple ways you can approach it, right? Like not everybody plays like the Springboks, not everybody can play like the All Blacks, certainly not everybody can play like Fiji or whatever, right? And there's a lot of different styles, and I'm kind of wondering, like, looking at the way the standings shake up, it's like, I wonder, like, the Utah Austin battle in the standings right now to me is just fascinating because you have Utah, who's got one of the best attacks in the league,
yeah,
right? But they win games like, you
a
know,
gazillion too.
yeah, they win games like 42-38 or whatever.
Hmm.
And then you have Austin, who's got one of the best defenses in the league, right? And it's like, I mean, they put up a pretty big number on Seattle, a relatively big number on Seattle this week. But it's like they were winning a lot of games like 17-12 or whatever the scores are, right?
Hmm.
Scoring under 20 points. And it just kind of fascinates me being like, how do you build your team in MLR sometimes, right? Because it's like you can go with the offensive route and you can go the defensive route. But when I'm looking at the standings right now, I'm thinking you don't get bonus points for playing defense,
Yeah, that's a great point. That
right?
is
And
really, really good point.
because right now we have Utah at 8-5, Austin at 8-5. Utah has 46 table points to Utah's 41. So Utah might as well be 9-5 as far as like Austin's concerned right now,
Yeah,
because they have a full bonus point win on like on Utah or on Austin. Even further than that, too. Like LA's 10-2 with 50 points, right? So it's like, LA, if you look at the number, looks like they're 2 wins ahead of Utah, but Utah's pulled up that gap and could, in theory, if LA loses and Utah wins a game, um, which do they both have buys this week? So I guess it's not happening this week. But like in theory, like Utah could maybe leapfrog LA in one game, despite the fact that they're 2 wins down. So I don't know. I think it's a fascinating thing, man. Like it's weird to kind of like, I
LA
think.
have another bye. How many bye I feel like they're constantly.
Oh,
On the
I'm looking at the schedule that you wrote down here, and you don't have an LA game. So either you screwed up writing down the schedule.
No, there's one more. There's one more game.
There's one more. Come on. Is it? It's LA versus Utah. Is that what the game?
No, it's
Seattle
Seattle. LA
versus
Seattle.
So Utah's got to buy.
Yeah.
Okay. So all right. Well, that's you. I'm blaming you for that.
That's fine.
You didn't write down all the games.
Yeah, you listen.
You didn't write down all the games, so I'm blaming you for that.
All right.
But either way, like I don't know. I find is it a like I don't know. Am I crazy here thinking this is like?
No, I agree with you. And like
the standings, I think award offense.
And I think we were worried about this. I mean, New York has flipped the script on themselves, but we worried about this at the beginning of the year with New York, seeing that like they're not scoring enough points.
Their point differential was really bad.
Their point differential was really bad. Now, granted, they had a couple blowout losses, and it seemed to self-correct itself, after a while.
But the table points are still the number one thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, even if you have a negative point differential, if you're scoring a lot of bonus points, that's the thing, right? It's like there's no bonus point.
At the time, Rooney was not scoring a lot of points. But
that's what
they have since corrected that. Some guys have Ben Foden has really turned it on.
Yeah, I don't know. I was just kind of looking at that. I'm like, I don't know. It's interesting. Like, how do you want to build your team, right? Because I think like you look at like Atlanta, probably one of the best, if not the best, defensive team in the league, right? They're sitting at the top of their table and stuff. But it's like, if this comes down to Utah and Austin having a similar record, Utah will probably edge them out just based on the fact that they choose to play that offensive style where they end up, sure, their game might be 45-42, right? But they get the win and the bonus point when they do that.
Right? They do. Yeah.
I don't know
either, buddy. All right. Rugby ATL versus Houston. There's a couple things I want to talk about in this game. One of them is how great is it that Connor Keys, and I don't know if this is an injury related thing, but I love that seeing Connor Keys is getting more chances to start matches. That makes me very happy. And another guy, Nick Hiltonbrand, got a start this week.
Got a start. His first start. NOLA start, right?
So good for Nick. I think he, from the highlights, it looked like he played pretty well. All things considered. Also a messy game. Now, something I want to talk to you about, Derek, is the fly half situation. So,
oh gosh,
Povey and Will Kelly are kind of the MLR contingent of fly halves for Canada going into this
they are
UK series. Has either one of them really pulled away from each other? I know that Povey's being used differently because Sam Windsor is
What did you think of Will Kelly's game this weekend? Did you like it, or?
I mean,
I thought
it's not
better than the previous week.
It doesn't give me confidence that they gave Spencer Jones the kicking responsibilities, especially now that Jones is hurt. Pardon me?
I mean, if we're talking like Canada and stuff, fly half doesn't always have.
No, it doesn't. But I mean, then we look at who would then take over the kicking.
I mean, hey man, Sophie DeGoody kicks for the women's team.
Yes, you are correct. It's just
there's no rule about who has to kick, right? It's just,
I know. No, that's fair. But like, it's just another tool that they've kind of pulled back because of confidence related things. I think there's no way to like. Will Kelly,
but at the same time, though,
half of the future.
Okay, so let me ask you this: So Houston didn't score a try in this game. They somehow got 15 points. Dan, who was responsible for those 15 points?
It's most likely Windsor.
Yeah, it definitely wasn't Povey.
Yeah, but I mean
Windsor, right?
That's why I prefaced this with. That's why I said before. Povey has a different setup, right? Like he's got Sam Windsor playing fly half B. Like that's really how they've got it set up right now. And it's very similar to what Taylor Adams had with Sam Malcolm. Like that's kind of their setup. They've got a 10 and a 15 that interchange.
I think Adams and Tukala was more of, or sorry, Adams and Malcolm was more of like you can attack on like both fronts with it.
Yeah, and for the most part, that's what they try to do with Povey and Windsor. It's just not as successful. My worry is that, and my worry is, I talked about this last week with the hooker situation with Quatrin and Howard. It just seems like neither of them are putting their hand up and saying, "I want to start."
Yeah, I think if you put,
and I think they're two different reasons.
Context,
I think that
maybe, yeah. Like I think,
I think it's two different reasons. I think that Kelly is just young. I think that everything that all the other things that aren't going right are going to go right with more experience. But
right. What's your knock on Povey then?
It just seems that, and again, I think a lot of this is the setup that's in Houston, is that he just seems very one-dimensional. Like he's got a big boot, and you need to watch him for, you need to watch that he will try and step you, or he will try to go through you because he's also a big guy.
Yeah, I think like if I'm picking it, if I'm Kingsley Jones, I think I give it to Kelly.
Just because if you want to give him that experience,
but,
especially, I keep on forgetting that this isn't the be all and end all, and that's my own bias, right?
Like this game's not. There's some things that I kind of like. Like I like obviously the grubber kick on Mirez's try, was great,
and he's had tons of great plays like that.
Yeah, I saw a handful of people like kind of ripping on that drop goal attempt, a little bit. Execution wasn't there, but I don't mind the idea of it. And I think too, like if you kind of look at the play, it's not the greatest pass from Brody. Is like Kelly has to lunge over to his side, drop down to a knee to catch the ball, and then
set up again,
and then reset up from where he was.
Again, we've already talked about the handling problems in that game.
There was a lot of it was wet and stuff.
It was kind of a crazy,
but it was one of those plays where it was like the arrows, like NOLA was holding off the arrows attack, and it's like maybe it's an attempt to come away at points. It didn't work out.
Scare them like oh, they're gonna try that.
It didn't work out, but I don't hate the idea of trying it. I kind of like that he had the confidence to try it. Like that's kind of, if you're kind of talking about a little bit of a confidence thing, and obviously if Jones kind of taking over some of the kicking duties in that game too. So maybe it's a good thing that he tried it. Maybe like it didn't work out though. So there is some poor execution on the play, obviously, but I don't necessarily hate the idea of trying it there. But yeah, so I mean, I don't know. I would lean Kelly. I think if anything, because Kelly's younger too, and it's like you kind of got to go with.
And I think that's a kind of point.
Find it. I think like we've said all the time, it's like this is the most this is the most interesting position because it's not clear who it should be. I think based on the squad that's going over, it's probably between Kelly, Nelson, Povey, right? So that's kind of like what the competition looks like, and I would hope in Europe you get a look at all of them at some point in the game, because you have to decide who that fly half is going to be when you play the United States later in the World Cup qualifier. And
if he's healthier,
and that's going to be a big matchup. And I know McGinty's hurt, so we'll see what happens there. But like, who's like the Eagles next in line? Like Will Hooley
or Will McGee?
Yeah, like the studs, right? So I mean, like that's going to be a big matchup, man. So yeah, like it's important. I still lean Kelly. I'm still on Team Kelly here, but
I agree with you. It's just I think, and I always bring up these.
I feel like you want to see one of these guys just have like a mind.
Yeah, exactly. I want someone to say, "Hey, here I am."
Yeah.
I want someone to go on the pitch and like. I thought Povey did that in that game against LA.
Oh, where he had like three
tries. He had the hat trick. I thought that was Povey saying, "Here I am. Let's do this. I'm going to be Canada starting." And then he just kind of trailed off.
He hasn't done that since, or been anywhere near it since.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. He's trailed off and really hasn't done anything. And I think maybe it's really hard to say. And maybe it's just selfish because I want to see what Povey can do. Maybe it's time for us to take a step. Houston's take a step back from Windsor. You're gonna
Yeah,
have a new
'cause
coach
why would
coming
you
in.
do that if you're Houston? Windsor's your best player.
I know, but like
Yeah, so why
it
would you
hasn't
do that?
worked.
Yeah, but he's your best player. So
Yeah,
why would
I
you?
think you guys see what you got there. All right, let's move on. Because another interesting little piece of news with some Canadian rugby is that a Larson went to Seattle, and it was Travis traded from San Diego. This is his fourth team since 2019. Started at Austin, went to Old Glory. They didn't need him anymore. Went to San Diego, and now it's been traded to Seattle. I wonder if this is something that Curry Hitchborn mentioned this in the interview he did with us, that this has happened a lot in Seattle, but it happens a lot with other coaches in rugby as well, is that when a new head coach comes in, he tries to bring in guys that either fit his playing style or he knows will be motivated to kind of play their type of game. And Travis he got one start and he's been coming off the bench, and it's been kind of an up and down season with San Diego. So to say that he's motivated is very realistic. And I think that he's actually a guy that Rugby Canada might need to look at if Vicky Lonnie or Corey Thomas aren't available. Um, he's a versatile player, so why not? He had a really good game for
Yeah,
Seattle.
played well.
And again, anytime that Seattle's going to pick up another Canadian, I'm pretty happy with it. But I want to ask you, do you think that maybe this summer there might be a movement of some of kind of the classic Canadians that we've always seen with Seattle? I mean, Sears Doodle, Nicky kind of have fallen out and now are coming off of the bench. That Nikai Penny, I mean, we don't know if it's injury. They really don't put out an injury report.
I
I'm
think
assuming he's hurt, because
yeah.
why would you not play Nikai Penny? I would love to see Sears Duru in the Arrows jersey. That would be sweet. Come home.
Every Canadian doesn't have to play for the Toronto Arrows.
No, but ones that are from Ontario, I think would be pretty dope for them to come play for Toronto.
Yeah, I mean it's
And
cool.
then that would solve a lot of problems with their loose head position. Gold Keith can go back to playing tight head. Yeah, listen.
Well, right now you have loose heads on the roster now, though, right? You got Brower, Jen.
Not two-time World Cup caliber.
No, that's true. That's true. It's true.
Sears Duru is one of my favorite players in MLR, so I would love to have him play for the Arrows.
Yeah. I mean, that would be cool. I'm not saying I wouldn't want him, but yeah, like I don't know. Like obviously there's a lot of big changes coming from Seattle. It's interesting because it looks like they've done most of their roster assembling during the season, which maybe not the best strategy, I guess.
Yeah.
But like it'd be interesting. Like it's funny because it's like you're asking, if like some of these like what the Seattle roster will look like this year, and it's like the Seattle roster now looks completely different than it did
Than
like
what it looked like
a month ago.
Yeah.
And stuff, right? So it's like I don't know. There's so much. There appears to be quite the significant amount of turnover happening with this team. So I feel trying to predict who's going to be on Seattle next year seems like a wild task to attempt.
Yeah.
I mean, like I said, I'm all for obviously any Canadians being in. So it'd be nice to see them all stick around and get some of that, take back some of that playing time. I think part of the issue with Sears Duru and El Nicky at the moment is objectively like the front row is playing well, right? So, or playing well-ish considering they're a 2-12, 2-11. So I mean, it's that's been a rough year for Seattle. That's kind of like, that's just been a rough year all around for Seattle. I guess since they've won the Shield, it's just, or the second Shield, it's just wildly downhill from there. So but yeah, at least they don't wear white jerseys with white numbers though, so
which will always be the bane of Derek's existence. He complains every time Austin plays in those jerseys.
You have orange, just use orange.
I know, buddy. I know, buddy. I've seen your messages. All right, the last game was a real doozy.
Oh,
LA versus San Diego. It felt like a playoff game. LA had a bunch of last minute injuries. I guess some guys just weren't up to fitness levels. So Billy Meeks is playing as a flanker. Has
not.
man
Why
of
not?
man of the week honors from it. Michael Smith looks like he's gonna get maybe one starting game before he goes back off with Canada. Because guess what? Chris Robshaw got hurt again.
Oh man,
Poor guy.
what an unfortunate season, man, for him.
And it's like Robshaw's been the games that he
Good
played,
man.
damn
Even like
good.
this game, like oh my goodness, like it. This game too is like the steals that he was making, the plays that he was making in his half. It's like I was like, oh yeah, like it's Rob Shaw. It's nice to see
Yeah.
him like it's nice to see him actually kind of shine as Rob Shaw, not just you know,
Yeah, not just the face that they
yeah,
kind of
like you
highlighted.
know what I mean. Like I hope
And it's a shame that Torero Stadium looked good. It's just
Ferrero was bumping, man. It was great.
Torero is just one of those, like, it's just a sentimental, like,
I
when I
love
think of MLR, I think of Torero Stadium, I think of Starfire. It's just those are just
Vivo
real
would be
good,
really cool if the Sabercats were
better.
better. Yeah,
Yeah, I don't.
I think
Yeah,
I think that has like just because of what it is, man. It's their stadium too. Like it's nice.
yeah.
Um,
So anyway, so
LA
great to see
Coliseum.
the fans. Poor
Yeah.
San Diego. All right,
Yeah,
that's
is
all I really can say
yeah.
about that. Poor Chris
Billy Meeks,
Robshaw
I
heal
think
up.
was the Billy Meeks is the story of the week, I guess, right? Like
Yeah, he
just
played really well. LA's just kind of showing that they can go through adversity. I mean,
yeah,
they've had some rough luck with some games on the road,
yeah.
especially in the East Coast.
I mean,
So
yeah, like they brought in some like newly signed guys and stuff and just kind of threw them in too. And like, it's getting, picking up just a lot of players and stuff. They're just kind of, throwing together a lineup and still finding ways to win
yeah,
games. And it's yeah, there was this is good. It's nice. It's as good. Like if you're a Giltinis fan, I feel like as good as it is to see them, blow teams out of the water. I think like if you are a Giltinis fan, it probably gives you some confidence in seeing them grind out wins too, finding like
finding ways to do it. Not
having
every game
to
has to be a blowout.
yeah, exactly, finding ways to dig deep and have a back step in at flanker and give you 3 breakdown steals.
Oh my god, it
Um,
still blows my mind.
yeah,
That's
no, man, yeah,
It's
excellent.
also funny with him at Quattrol and him. Those two bald heads on the either side of the scrum, just kind of bopping up and down and like checking like little like bald meerkats. It was great. It was fun to watch.
Yeah.
And they're roomies, so
And
that's even funnier. Like
yeah,
they live together, so it's funny just to watch them be so close for once.
I thought too. I thought Michael Smith was great in the second half too. Like, he made a lot of tackles. He was at a lot of, he made a lot of tackles. He was at a lot of like rucks, breakdowns,
Mhm.
stuff. Had a couple decent carries. He was very very active throughout the game, right? And
Yeah,
it's his development. I think just playing 1 year of Major League Rugby is kind of there's a,
skyrocket. The
there's a reason
world is his
he's going to
oyster.
Europe, man.
Yeah. All right. Well, in terms of rugby news, Derek, we don't have a whole lot of it. I mean, we've kind of exhausted that the last couple weeks. Um,
There's a lot, yeah.
a lot. One thing that we would like to mention is Sophia DeGood was named to the Premier 15's Team of the Year.
Mhm.
Um, she kind of played all over, but got in as a lock. So, congratulations on Sophie. Great news. The other fun little bit of news that we wanted to share, and if you want to see what these warm up jerseys look like, go to Rugby Canada's website, or go to their Twitter, Instagram. It's all over the place. But to mark National Indigenous Peoples Day, which was on the 21st, so a few days ago, Rugby Canada announced that their training shirts will be worn that are going to be worn in Tokyo. Are going to have original Indigenous art design. A Coast Salish artist, Bradley Dick, who I guess in his own right was had a rugby background with James Bay, designed this beautiful shirt with a Thunderbird on it. Um, I think that's just it's a great sentiment. I know that the Indigenous peoples community has had a rough go lately, and for Rugby Canada to say, "Hey, we are going to take a local artist's work and highlight Indigenous art on one of the biggest stages our sport can offer." The Olympics is a global brand, so I think that this is a really cool opportunity to show respect to the Indigenous men and women that support our sport and also give us, the ability to play on their lands all throughout Canada. So kudos to Rugby Canada for making this a initiative that they're trying to push forward, and I can't wait to see what more plans they have. Hopefully, that when we start seeing more jerseys and the partnership with Macron with some of their gear, I would love to buy one of these shirts.
Dude,
Hopefully, that they'll be available.
Yeah, like seeing the Indigenous training jerseys, it got me kind of excited for what the actual kits are going to look like.
Yeah,
And now that I've seen the Indigenous jerseys too, I'm kind of like, I hope they incorporate some of that kind of design
Indigenous
into
art.
the actual kit too.
Yeah, I
Like,
think
even
that
if it's just like, you can kind of go maybe like with that classic, like just the red Rugby Canada patch on the chest and stuff, but maybe like because you can do a lot of cool things with like the sublimation now, right? And maybe you
kind of
kind of
like
go
with like
that
the
route.
All Blacks jersey had like fern kind of like sublimation
Yeah,
like the World Cup
exactly. Like
jersey. Something
go
like that would be super sweet.
Yeah, go kind of that route. You can maybe mix in some of the Indigenous art on the tip in that
Yes,
way too. That'd be cool.
yes,
I think that'd be cool. Kind of like that was what like Hockey Canada wore that at like the 2010 Olympics, where they had the leaf and then it had the some of the art like just kind of inside
in the
the
leaf.
leaf on the logo.
Yeah, that was
I
pretty
think
sweet.
if you do it like that and stuff, and go the route that they did by getting an Indigenous artist to design it and stuff,
Yes,
the results can, like we've seen like in Super Rugby, some of those kits that they have down there a bit gorgeous too. So um I love this idea from Rugby Canada, and go I genuinely want to see more of it. Hopefully they kind of carry on that theme and stuff, but as it stands right now, the training kits are awesome.
so I both of us, but mostly me, made kind of a fools of ourselves the last time Stu wasn't here, and we did not talk about his picks. So,
Or include them at all.
or include them at all. So, Stu, please tell us
In
who you
fairness,
got
though,
picked.
we got Curry Hitchborn's picks, which were better than Stu's anyways.
Yeah,
So I mean, was I really that wrong?
yes, we were. It was an awful mean thing for us to do, and we forgot.
Well, now
All
I
right,
now
Stu,
I
who
feel
do you
shame.
got? Who do you got, Stu?
Alright, fellas, these are my picks for round 15. So, first up, we have the Arrows versus New York. It's another double header at the Snake Pit. And I'm going to have to say it's probably going to go the way of New York. Toronto, as we know, just haven't been firing on all cylinders. They just haven't been able to play the full 80 minutes, especially as you can see against the game against NOLA. And New York, they're on a charge. They want to secure their playoff position, possibly even jump ATL. They still have a game in hand. So I think it's going to go the way of New York. Next up, we have the Free Jacks versus NOLA Gold. And it's going to be home for the Free Jacks, so I'm going to give them home advantage once more, and that they're going to take the victory in Weymouth. Up next, we have Houston versus Utah. Houston have just given up at this point. They're only going for penalties. Even though they're out of the playoffs, they're not really going for tries. And I think Utah will exploit that, and they'll use that to secure their playoff position. So the Warriors are my choice. Okay, the second of the doubleheaders, ATL versus Old Glory DC. DC aren't coming off a bye week, but ATL just seem to be on form at the moment. They're just getting everything right. And like New York, they want to secure their playoff position as well. So I'm going to go with the home side, Rugby ATL. And for the final game on Saturday, San Diego versus Austin. Now, this is going to be the thing. If Utah wins, San Diego are out of the playoffs. But I still think they're going to be firing on all cylinders. They want to end their year on a high, and I think they're going to be able to just edge Austin. And the final game of the week, Seattle versus LA. It's LA. Seattle have just not been able to see games out. I mean, their game against Austin was very close, but at the same time, LA are just getting back into the swing of things. They just want to see the season out, and they're focused on the playoffs. So I'm going to go with LA. But you don't really care what I think. You want to hear what the Toonie thinks. So, for all the new watchers and listeners, once again, heads means home team, tails means away. We'll start with Toronto versus New York. And the Toonie goes for Toronto. New England versus New Orleans. The Toonie picks New England. Houston versus Utah. The Toonie picks Houston. Okay, ATL versus DC. The Toonie picks DC. San Diego versus Austin. The Toonie picks San Diego. And finally, Seattle versus LA. The Toonie picks LA. So those are my choices. Those are the Toonie's choices. Make of that what you will.
Okay, Derek. So
First of all, Stu is a traitor. Not only did he pick Rooney, he was wearing an orange shirt when he did it. So I say we don't invite him back ever.
No, I'd miss him too much. I don't have enough gingers in my life.
You have no loyalty either, apparently, Dan.
No, I don't. And you're not going to like this because I'm also picking Rooney.
God, oh my God. Traitors.
I'm sorry. Listen.
Traitors. We'll bring back the Darth Vader quotes, man. I should be telling you to some stormtrooper to take you away right now.
That's fine. I'll deal with it in my later life.
Yeah.
All right.
Toronto.
All right. Next game. New England versus NOLA.
Also, the Toonie picked Toronto, like a good, loyal Canadian artifact.
I'm going to use that Toonie to buy something. Buy you a box of Kleenexes so you can cry over it.
Oh, well, you're going to be sad when Rooney loses.
I hope I'm sad.
The entire team has shoulder injuries from lifting that trophy this week. Didn't you hear?
It's a pretty nice trophy.
It's a gorgeous trophy. I actually loved it.
I love your tweet that it's kind of making the Shield look bad, though. Also, how many trophies are there? I'm starting to lose track of the amount of trophies.
There's the Champagne Cup, which is the LA New York game. There's the Texas Cup,
Fire and Ice Cup,
Cuisine Solutions Cup.
Yep.
That's
4 so far, including the Fire and Ice Cup.
Fire and Ice, yeah. I think that's about it. And then obviously the Shield, but I think that's about it. That's
5 trophies. Is that a regular thing in other, I don't remember this being a big thing with the Pro 14. That's the league I probably follow the most. This is a little aggressive.
Hey,
get it together, guys. I know fun. Trophies are nice and they're shiny, but stay away from the shiny stuff. Okay.
MLR Virtual Cup. I forgot about that one.
We're at 6 cups. Holy moly. Okay. New England versus NOLA. New England is home.
Sorry, what was that last sentence there, Dan?
New England is home.
New England.
Yep. That's where I'm going with it, too.
Heck, even the Toonie went with that.
Atlanta versus Old Glory DC.
Oh man, Old Glory has kind of struggled, and I think just Atlanta's defense is just kind of too good. So yeah, we'll go with Atlanta.
And they're also getting Kurt Coleman back.
They are getting wow. So we don't have much news to talk about, Dan. Coleman's coming back. Also,
him and Ryan Nell. Ryan Nell was announced a couple weeks ago. So he's probably just getting back into the rhythm of things with the team.
Yeah.
Absolutely dangerous, terrifying. Holy moly. San Diego versus AGs.
Oh man, what a tough one.
I'm going with Austin. I think that Stu picking San Diego. I think that what I've seen with Morath leading the way, I like this Austin team.
Yeah, I think San Diego's at home. You get the bump from Torero. This man, this is gonna be this is probably the biggest 50-50 game. So I think this is a bit of a toss up. So I think because I think our picks should resemble that. So Stu and the Toonie went with San Diego. You went with Austin. I'll even it up and go Austin.
All right, joining me. I like it.
Oh God, I've made a mistake.
Seattle versus LA.
I mean,
I'm surprised it's taking you this long.
I know. I'm just trying to think of a clever joke for what I can say to pick LA. That's all I was trying to do.
Even with centers playing flanker.
I was going to say, you know what? All right, I think what needs to happen in this game is the backs for LA play forward and the forwards all play backs. I want Charlie Abel at fly half. That's what I want.
No, I want Charlie Abel as fullback. I want to see what his kick's like.
Fullback? Yeah, there we go. And you know what? Even if LA did that, I'm still going to pick LA.
Yeah, I'm going with LA. I don't think that would happen. I think that Gitau and Cooper would not last in a scrum.
DTH at flanker could be fun. I think he might be able to pull that off.
Maybe. But like, we can't put all of them at flanker. We'd have to put somebody at prop and lock.
Yeah, no. You can put them all at prop. Who cares? I'm going, who's the small? Luke Burton, tight head prop. Do it.
Sure.
Well,
all right, and then the last game of the weekend, Utah versus Houston.
Yeah, so first of all, Dan, you completely just threw
it's not. Yeah, I know it's not the last game.
Out on that part.
I watched the chart. It's somewhere in the end. Seattle always seems to have the last game of the weekend. It's been kind of a tradition for me. Sunday nights watching Seattle. It's been kind of nice.
Yeah,
but been so close lately. So
yeah, but now I have to go back and edit out that entire part where we talked about Utah and LA having bye weeks because it's clearly not true at all.
No, I corrected it. We corrected that. We talked about it.
No, because we just found out about the Utah Houston one. So we only
no. You know what?
It's all your.
I just want to do extra work. That's really.
Yeah, I'm still blaming you.
Right.
So that was a long convoluted way of saying Utah by 40.
Yeah, we just didn't want to have to talk about why we're picking Utah because it's Utah. Yeah. Sorry, Toonie. I don't think that you're pulling out the magic win with picking Houston.
Yeah. You know, it's funny because it's like the Toonie has kind of had like some that are just like, oh man, they actually like nailed this huge nails this huge upset pick. And then the next time you see it pick and it's like Houston winning a game and you're like, oh dear, Toonie.
So sorry.
We have to, the one thing that we've really been slacking on as a podcast, we have
is our record
and figure out what everyone's figured out.
I know. Every week I go, you know what? I'll look into it.
We have to go back before the end of the season and figure this out. We've been slacking on actually keeping track of the records. We just
there is one specific week where I went and I did it and I haven't done it since. So
yeah,
next week I will come back. I am swearing to you on the podcast. Next week I will have our records so far this season.
I'm going to hold you to it.
And so God help me, I will figure it out.
All right.
Well, that's all I have for today, Derek. Yeah, it's going to be an interesting weekend. Hopefully we'll be able to watch the Lions test. Hopefully, there'll be some good matches. I mean, I think other than the
win too.
Yeah, hopefully.
Feel terrible about yourselves.
No, my heart's just been broken. I don't care anymore.
That's not true at all. You care. You have a podcast talking about this. You care a
lot. Yeah, other than the Utah-Houston game, all these games look like they're going to be pretty close and pretty fun, so I'm looking forward to it. If anyone is interested in listening to our previous episodes, we have a catalog of interviews before the season and a couple during. Our latest one was with Curry Hitchborn. You can find them on all the podcast platforms. On YouTube, we have them in video form. If you want to look at my jerseys on the wall, they're all there. They're there. Canada, Ireland, Wolfpack, Arrows, got it all. And if you want to kind of see where this podcast is going, you want us to kind of hit certain topics, have certain guests on, hit us up. Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, we're active on all of them. Rouge Rugby. And also email us. Our email is in some of our links on our social media platforms. Derek, what is the email?
Rouge Rugby podcast @gmail.com.
Send us some questions. Let us know what
somebody already had Rouge Rugby @gmail.com.
You know what? It was probably me and I forgot the password, so that's on me. Derek, thank you very much for joining me tonight, and hopefully this weekend you'll see lots and lots of good rugby.